Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augment Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and welcome back to the show. Today's episode 77 of the show. Today is the Friday episode, and obviously, you guys seem to really like the episode with the AirPods Pro with Hefe. And if you guys haven't heard the episode, then I'd highly recommend you go listen to it because it was a really great talk, to be honest. And yeah, it was a pain in the butt to edit it because a lot of technical issues, but overall, I was really happy with how it came out, and I loved how the discussion turned out between me and Hefe. And I really hope that all of y'all that have heard the episode so far, hope that y'all enjoyed it too. So, feel free to share that episode and, share other episodes on the show that, you like, because obviously it helps out a lot. So now on to today's episode, because we are talking about the new Xbox, and I am personally excited for this one because most people that know me personally in real life, well, I wouldn't say real life because, I'm talking to you right now. So anybody that knows me personally knows that I love the Xbox brand. I originally, even though, yes, I'll admit, I started with the PS2, but my next console after that was the Xbox 360, and then I got a Wii. And then from there, I just loved my 360 to death because I had so many good memories on there. That's how I met a lot of my friends. A lot of fun times on the 360, and then everyone got the Xbox One. So then I eventually got the Xbox One, I believe it was like a year or two after it came out is when I got the Xbox One. And I remember getting it, and obviously a lot of issues when I got my Xbox One, because I bought it off a Black Friday deal from Dell, and well, first the controller didn't work when I got it, so I had to take it to the Microsoft store and get a new one. And then the console broke. The console, the Wi-Fi card inside of it broke, so I had to take it to the Microsoft store, and they just gave me a whole new Xbox, and I haven't had an issue since then. I eventually sold my base model Xbox One to buy an Xbox One S, and obviously that's the Xbox I have right now, the Xbox One S, the 1TB model. And obviously I really wanted the X, and I advocated a lot for the X when it came out because, it's very incredible piece of hardware, and obviously Microsoft's first big step, in prioritizing hardware, and then now we have the new Xbox that was shown off at the Game Awards this week. And obviously, if we're being honest, a lot of people were really excited, because this is a big ship. Or I wouldn't say this week, it was more like last week. Yeah, actually, it was last week. And a lot of people were excited, because we knew the new Xbox was coming. We knew it was called Project Scarlet. They said holiday 2020 at the E3 is when they showed it off. And then all of a sudden at the Game Awards, that's the biggest announcement they showed off, which was, the next Xbox. And people were like, holy cow. And we've heard a lot of rumors. We've talked about the rumors on the show before and what to expect in terms of specs and everything. And we just didn't know what it would look like, what it would what it'd be called, what to expect. And then now that we saw at the Game Awards and what they're boasting, it's really crazy on what Microsoft is boasting, especially because this isn't going to be the only next-gen Xbox. We know it won't be, especially because of the naming, the Xbox Series X. There is another, and we've already talked about this before in previous leaks, that there is another more powerful version of this Xbox coming out soon. Or it will come up after this one launches next year. So for now, the original, the one that's starting off this generation, is the Xbox Series X. And what do we expect? So for all of you that saw the Game Awards, we know how it looks like now. For most people, they said it looked like a brick. Some people said it looked like a mini fridge. Some people, well, most realistically, many people said it looked like a mini ITX build. And it was really, I like it. I think Microsoft had to do something to, get people's attention. It's kind of the same thing that happened with the Tesla Cybertruck, that people, like, they needed a crazy design to stick out, get everyone's attention, get everyone to talk about it, and included it. So obviously after they showed it off at the Game Awards with the trailer, Phil Spencer came out, talked about it a little bit, and then obviously showed off a very, very impressive trailer. When obviously based on what Phil Spencer told us, is that it's all running on in-game engine of Hellblade 2, and it looked incredible. It looked gorgeous. Obviously, for most people, when we talk about the specs, some people said there was some ray tracing involved in there, and just insane, and it just got really, really crazy. So let's talk about some specs, because now we have a little bit more confirmation behind it. So based on what we were told, that obviously we all know, as we talked about it before, the CPU will be a custom AMD Zen 2 chipset. So we know that. And it's also going to be accompanied by a custom GPU built on AMD RNDA architecture with hardware-based ray tracing, Obviously, we know there is an SSD now. Shocker. Microsoft also claimed that the new console handles 4K at 60 frames per second, with the possibility of up to 120 frames per second. Obviously, when you say that, that means variable refresh rates will be a standard on this Xbox. And, it even says it right on the next line. I'm also reading an article based off Newsweek, which they are breaking down everything that Microsoft talked about at the event, and obviously all the information that's come out since then. Obviously, they talked about 8K capability, and we'll talk about that a little bit later down. Now, so let me go down a little bit of I like how they make sure that they quoted this, that Windows Central sources, the Series X might boast, and these are some of the rumors, that we are looking at an 8-core targeting around 3.5 gigahertz. Obviously, we know the custom GPU and the custom processor. We're looking at 12 teraflops of compute power. We're also looking to about 16 gigabytes of RAM in total. That's all DDR6. So they're claiming 13 gigabytes will be for games and 3 gigabytes for the operating system. And then we all know that the SSD will be an NVMe M.2 SSD. And obviously, they also talk about in the interview that Phil Spencer did with GameSpot. Obviously, if you guys don't know who Phil Spencer is, he's Microsoft's Xbox chief. This is what he had to say regarding performance. We wanted to have a dramatic upgrade from the Xbox One base console. So when we do the math, we're over 8 times the GPU power of the Xbox One and 2 times that is of the Xbox One X. Obviously, that has been changed a little bit because some people have been saying about like 3 times more, 4 times more, there's a big difference, and obviously they're comparing, they even put the comparison of the Xbox One X as we know its specs. We have a 2.3 gigahertz AMD customized Jaguar Evolved 8-core CPU, GPU that's a 1172 megahertz AMD customized UC RX 580. The compute power is 6 teraflops of performance, 12 gigabytes of GDDR5 RAM, and obviously a 1 terabyte HDD. And when we talk about also some new changes that are coming, the controller is definitely something new. I think the main difference, if you look at it, because I have my Xbox One controller right here in front of me, actually, based on comparing the pictures, the main difference is presumably coming from the D-pad and adding a share button. Is based on what we're seeing. Based on the pictures, because the pictures are very hard to tell because no one's actually held the new Xbox controller in hand, that it seems like it may be the same height. And this is also a good way to figure out how tall the new Xbox is going to be as well, because a lot of people were really confused when they saw this thing. That, the main difference is that the D-pad is clearly more reminiscent of the Elite controllers, is going in that direction. Obviously, the share button right in the middle because, people have been asking for it, so they're like, let's just put it on there because why not? And with using the controller, we're able to tell how big this thing is going to be, actually, because a lot of people, when they saw it, like we mentioned, they're like, okay, this thing looks massive, like pretty massive, if we're being honest here. And I see why, because, well, yeah, this thing looks like a giant brick, but, I specifically know that it looks like a mini ITX build, so because that's what Microsoft seems to be going for, is that they want to make this thing look like a PC. But it doesn't seem that big, because when you look at the comparison, with the controller in front of it specifically, you can tell that's probably about 3 controllers high. So it's not too big, it's very compact. I'd say it's probably going to end up being the size of maybe around the height of my NZXT H500i, maybe. I think I'm guessing on that. Don't quote me. I'm guessing. But I will also say that they also said you can hold it horizontally as well. So that's kind of a neat feature, so you can have it sideways. But one thing that's very interesting was the design, because as we mentioned, I feel like Microsoft definitely had to go with something crazy, especially because, we're coming up on the next generation of consoles, and Microsoft is swinging as hard as they can to, see what they can pull off, And it's crazy to think about it, if we're being honest. And because let's be honest, Microsoft is not the leader right now in the console wars. They're not. Or I wouldn't say console wars, but I'd say in this whole, console race, or, whatever we want to call it, they're not the leaders right now. They're not. They're currently trailing. Because Xbox One sales, while they did increase thanks to Phil Spencer's leadership and, I'd say helping Microsoft, or helping the Xbox brand specifically to refocus on what it's about, definitely has helped, and has helped increase, more confidence in Microsoft. But let's be real for a minute. Sony's not, they're not slacking either. They've been slugging out some top tier games that a lot of people really liked, and that's why Microsoft has been stepping up their game and buying studios, and getting all this, nice studios being acquired, and getting them pumping out games for the next console, and holding all their cards to their chest, And Sony's doing the same thing, so let's keep that in mind. But in terms of the next Xbox, the design, I do agree that the design had to be crazy. They had to go with something insane. And what I really like, based on what I've been hearing, is that the top portion of the new Xbox, where the LED is also where the fan is going to be, that they're saying that it's just one giant fan to cool the entire system. And since obviously, if you guys know anything about how mechanics work and gears and, fans and everything, a bigger fan doesn't need to spin as fast as a smaller fan to cool the whole system. So it's actually going to be able to run more quietly compared to the other Xboxes. So that's kind of a nice thing, running a little bit quieter, because, some people just don't want a jet engine taking off in their living room or wherever this console is going to be put. Because a lot of people complained about the PS4 Pro just sounding like a jet engine when you're cranking it really hard. Now, the main thing that a lot of people are questioning: how much is this thing going to cost? And this is going to be interesting, because, I personally believe this thing is going to be somewhere around $500 to $700. And I know that sounds a lot for a console, especially, because $500 to $700, that's a lot of money. That's not something to scoff at. I personally think that if Microsoft wants to go all out, I think it would make sense to sell this thing at a deficit and sell it at a loss, and sell it at $500 or $499 at the price of the Xbox One X. Obviously, the Xbox One X, it's either, I wouldn't say they're going to discontinue it, but they're probably going to lower its price dramatically when this new Xbox comes out, because we've already established that this thing is going to come out holiday of 2020. And normally Xboxes tend to launch in November. Even the Newsweek article mentioned this as well. If I scroll all the way to the top, they actually mentioned this in the article that, let me see if I can actually find that little piece right here for y'all, that they mentioned that, yeah, here we go. Typically, the Xboxes tend to launch in November, so they mentioned that the Xbox 360 was released on November 22nd of 2005. The Xbox One, the original Xbox One, was launched on November 22nd of 2013. So it could arrive on November 22nd of 2020, because this is a pattern that Microsoft tends to have with these things. But we also have to keep in mind that the PlayStation 5 is also, pegged to release at the holiday of 2020 as well. So we need to see what ends up happening, because both companies will be launching the new consoles. I wouldn't say at the same time, but like in the same time frame of holiday 2020, which holiday usually means October to December. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I personally think it makes sense to start at 500. I think that would be the safest bet Microsoft has because they're going to boast a lot of power under the hood. The whole thing with backwards compatibility that you're going to have 4 generations of consoles all in one, basically, because you're going to be able to play games from the original Xbox, from the Xbox 360, from the Xbox One line, and then obviously games from the Xbox Series X. And 4 generations of console all on one console is crazy. Like 4 generations of games on one platform. That's insane. Because you can just take the disc, pop it in, and go. And I think it's going to be crazy. And one thing I will also say is the naming scheme. Based on what I've heard, I would say this is a lot of conversations that have been going on. I've had with a lot of people regarding this, that it seems like they're rebooting the name of the Xbox. That the Xbox Series X, that the name of the new Xbox is just Xbox. That they're rebooting it, and that the Series X is literally just is signifying that this is one of many Xboxes that will come in this line, And I noticed how a lot of people made this joke where, I wouldn't say a joke, but it's this interesting point to think about, where they started with the original Xbox, then you had the Xbox 360, then you had the Xbox One, and then we go back to Xbox. And I like how some people have said it. They basically did a full 360, It's crazy to think about it that way. But it's true that they're going in that direction. And I think it's a smart idea. Now, I will say this. I think the naming scheme, I do believe it might confuse some people, but I think this will just come down to common sense and how people react, because some people are saying, people are going to go into a store, they're going to say, I want the new Xbox, and they probably might walk out with a One X. I'm like, I don't realistically think that will happen. I don't personally believe that would happen, because obviously if you go into a store and you say you want like the new iPhone, they're going to show you the new iPhone. They're not going to show you like, oh, here's the iPhone 8. This is a new iPhone. No, it's not. Like, when you say new iPhone, everybody knows what the new iPhone looks like. There is no, confusion. And I just think that's me. That's me personally. And I'll say that right now. That's just common sense to me. But that might not be common sense to many other people. So I'll say that right now. However, my main thing to think about in this entire situation, because I personally like what I'm seeing right now with the new Xbox. Would I pick one up? I probably might, to be honest. Like, if money is not tight and, if things are looking a little bit different, then yeah, I might cop a new Xbox, because I personally like playing on my Xbox. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't played on my Xbox One S in a long time because of, just not having it. And I've just been so busy with college, and, just having my PC is just a little bit more relaxing than my Switch. But I've always loved the Xbox brand. I've always loved the memories I've had, like making friends with people on Xbox. And I know some people argue with me about it, but like just the stability of Xbox Live is far better than PlayStation Online. That's just objective. Let's be fair. It's just overall better, a little bit more secure. Not perfect, but, a little bit more secure, And I just like the whole idea with like backwards compatibility and everything just being a big factor, and Microsoft's big push for the xCloud, and there's a lot going into this. Now, in terms of VR, do I think Microsoft will make a jump with VR with this console generation? Maybe. I know Sony is currently making big pushes because obviously right now in terms of the console space, they are the leader, even though nobody else has really tried. Nintendo's not really trying to make a VR headset, and obviously Microsoft hasn't. But I think in Microsoft, knowing Microsoft's track record, if they really wanted to get into a market, they'll chuck as much money as they can until they make an impact. If you don't believe me, look at the whole Surface lineup. Like, Microsoft threw a ton of money. They sold those things at a loss. They didn't make a ton of money until recently they started making money because people started buying the Surface products because they really like them. And, like, Microsoft is crazy. They'll throw money. Like, they will throw money until they can break into a market. They will. That's how this works. And I think Microsoft is setting themselves up in a healthy direction right now to, I wouldn't say take over this console generation, but they're setting themselves in a position where they're putting themselves back in the good graces of the consumer. And Sony really hasn't been. They've been more stubborn, obviously with crossplay and being late to the party and, backwards compatibility. And I get it, they're showing up some new games. But I will also say this, that it's going to be interesting to see what Sony does, because Sony won't be at E3. They already said that they won't show up. Like, I don't know if things will change and they'll decide to show up at E3 2020, because I don't see any other chance Sony has to show off the new PlayStation besides on Twitter. And that's why I think it's going to be interesting. I think Sony might change their mind, especially after all the hype that's going on with the new Xbox and the fact that everybody's going to be anticipating more and more details. They want more specs. They want to know what's inside this thing. They want hands-on. They want to see Halo gameplay and more of Hellblade 2. They want to see more gameplay of that stuff. And Halo Infinite specifically is what a lot of people are interested in, because Halo right now and Halo right now, especially with Halo Reach being on PC, is becoming incredibly popular. Halo's gaining a lot of momentum now, and a lot of people are really wanting more Halo right now. So I don't know, Sony. I'm not trying to be a Microsoft or an Xbox fanboy right now. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to be honest with y'all. It's an interesting time for console gamers. Microsoft is definitely throwing out some heavy firepower out here. I'm being honest with y'all. They're throwing some heat. And let's keep this in mind as well. This is just the base Xbox. This isn't the replacement of the One X or the One S. So let's be mindful. There will be a more powerful version of this Xbox coming. And Sony, if they go the same track record and they just make, the same thing where they do the base, Slim, Pro, then Microsoft will respond with a Slim and obviously an upgrade, the X, and it'll be interesting to see what Microsoft does, because they're pushing a lot, that they're saying this is the most powerful console they've ever made, that obviously with the whole, and that's kind of the whole thing that happened, was that they were able to keep the price so low with the One X, was the fact that they didn't upgrade the Jaguar CPUs. And a lot of people were really happy that they went away from the Jaguar CPUs. Like, people hated those CPUs. They were terrible. And the fact that now they're going with Zen 2 architecture, the rumor is that these things are underclocked versions of the 3700X, because both Microsoft and Sony are using these new CPUs. So we're going to see what happens. Obviously, the graphics card, we have no idea. Like, the fact that there's going to be hardware-based ray tracing is really interesting. I don't think it's going to work the exact same way as ray tracing as we expect it, but we'll see. But overall, I think Microsoft is doing a great job at building hype for this next Xbox. I'm excited to see more details about it and see what ends up happening, because, as I mentioned before, a lot of people are interested. The whole design and everything, it definitely stuck out. It, gave people, got people talking, because it's kind of what I said. The same thing happened with the Tesla Cybertruck. They had to do something crazy to get everyone's attention, because this is a big market. The console market is definitely big, and it's still thriving. And the same thing I said about the Cybertruck is truck owners are a very big market, because if you get them to buy one truck, they'll come by and they'll buy a couple, 3 to 4 others, that in their lifetime, and it's crazy to think about. But they had to do something crazy, and I'm interested to see how Sony responds. That's what I want to see, because I'm interested to see what Sony's going to do in response to this. What are they going to show off, and how they're going to show it off. Because if they try showing this, if they show off the next PlayStation on Twitter, I'd say that's a bad call. I think you need a big press event to show this off, because you need the world's attention. Like, you definitely cannot just show off the next PlayStation on Twitter and be like, hey guys, here's the new PlayStation, holiday 2020, blah, blah, blah. No. You guys have to have a press event to show this thing. Like, you have to get people excited, because if they just show it on Twitter, that just, I don't know, it leaves a bad impression, It leaves, in my opinion, it leaves a bad impression, because it shows that you don't have that much confidence, Microsoft, you can tell Microsoft is extremely confident going into this generation. They are not one bit worried. Like, because they know they got firepower. And they know that they got a lot of stuff that they were saving, that now they're able to, put all their cards on the table and go all in. And I think it's just crazy to think about. But that's all I got for today. Because like I said, this is mainly just, I'd say, breaking down what was revealed, more information that's come out since then, and, just giving my thoughts on it, And overall, I think it's crazy. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. And if you're not excited, let me know why you're not excited. And, for all my Xbox fans, I know you guys are excited. Like, it's crazy. It's definitely a great time to be alive because we're going into the next generation of consoles, and I think it's great. But obviously, I want to thank you guys so much for coming back and listening. Thank you guys so much for your continued support of the show. I really appreciate it, and I love you guys to death for it. If you're interested, as I mentioned before, if you're interested in supporting the show, keep sharing the episodes, keep liking them, click the follow button if you're interested to, stay up to date with the show. And if you want to become a backer of the show, go to patreon.com/JoshRavelis, and you can become a backer on the show and get early access to the episodes. But I love you guys to death. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Please be safe, guys. Don't do anything dumb. And I'll see you guys next week. And, let's have some fun, because it's a great time to be alive, especially because the whole year is coming to an end now. So it's definitely crazy. But until then, I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.